Second part. The silence was shattered by a shrill cry every bit as horrifying as the roar of a gray bear before it attacks its prey. Seeing the blue light and purple smoke that rose from the white breast of each creature, Ai Ling shuddered.
But that's just...
She stammered.
How on earth did they get by the high-voltage lines?
Go back to the main house. They're probably after me. A voice like bronze whispered in her ear, realizing just then that the hunter was at her side.
But...
Just go. His order was even gentler than his ordinary speech. Without waiting to see that Ai Ling made it back to the house, Dee turned the other way and sprinted into action. His coat fluttered out in the wind like a pair of huge black wings. Perhaps the reason he moved forward was because he'd sensed that the speed of Ai Ling's retreat was far slower than that of the colossal birds as they charged toward her. Chicks or not, each of them was over 6.5 feet tall, and a blow from the beak or talons of one of these foul-tempered beasts was enough to punch a hole in titanium, to say nothing of what they could do to flesh. When they closed within 10 feet of the hunter, one of the death dealers in downy white bounded up toward the heavens. Built to carry the creature's 700-pound frame, the chickener's legs had enough spring to leap over 15 feet in the air, even from a complete standstill. With all its talons spread as wide as they could go, the bird started to drop from the air right at the point where it would intercept Dee. Perhaps the eyes of the bird caught the silvery path of Dee's weapon as it sliced off both the attacker's legs in midair. As Dee plowed straight into the flock of screeching chickeners, more black beaks than could be counted came down at his head. The human skull would be as soft as a grape to them, but the parabolic arc of the vicious bird beaks was rewarded not with a taste of Dee, but with the glittering slashes of his sword. Bright blood scattered in the sunlight. Less than 2 seconds later, over a dozen chicks lay on the ground. Fresh blood stained the green grass. Gory blade in one hand, Dee stood motionless. Though had he slashed away with his sword in the middle of a wild mist of blood, not a drop of it marked his clothes or his gorgeous face. The question was, why not? Moments later, that small bloody part of the vermilion pasture started to rise without warning. But then it wasn't alone. The ground around it trembled and began to rise as well. Dirt and grass still sticking to them, these things rolled free of the ground and floated up into the air. They were bubbles, up to 1.5 feet in diameter. Given their crimson color, the name blood bubbles suited them well. Like lava boiling from a caldera, like poisonous foam spawned by some crazed chemical reaction, these horrific offspring were born from the earth that had drunk the blood of the vicious birds. Almost like sentient beings, the bubbles stopped at a height of 6 feet. One by one, their numbers grew. Perhaps that was all they were waiting for. What do you make of them? Dee asked someone.
I think maybe we should call them bloody foam eggs.
Someone replied.
I've never seen them before either. They're bubbles, so they've got to burst sometime. When they do, shut down your senses. Just a second.
The voice added.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Want me to take a bite out of one?
That would be nice.
Hey, don't be so damn casual about it. This concerns you, too.
The indignation of its tone was further colored by swirls of weirdness that knew no depths.
Hey, come and get us!
The voice shouted. At some point, Dee had taken his left hand from his side and turned the palm toward one of his airborne foes. The wind roared. And with that, one of the mysterious blood bubbles quivered and was drawn toward Dee's hand. As a rounded contour touched the hunter's palm, it stretched thinner, as if it was being drawn through a hole, and the other extreme of the bubble swelled grossly. The suction didn't end there. The swollen portion didn't pop, but appeared to be struggling even as its shape continued to change. In no time it shrank, displaying the sort of fear a drowning creature does, before it sank completely into the palm of Dee's hand.
Wow, pretty damn tasty,
A voice said cheerily, but a second later, it became a cry of pain the likes of which the world rarely heard. Rather strong poison? Dee inquired calmly.
This stuff, it's pretty damn lethal. Don't think even I could take a second one? Better fall back.
And with that, there was movement. Not on the part of Dee, but by the blood bubbles. Perhaps the groans of their victim had filled them with confidence, or maybe they'd finally amassed the numbers necessary. But the bubbles split into two groups and zipped through the air in a beeline for Dee.
Sheesh, don't cut those things.
His left hand squealed. Dee covered his nose and mouth with a scarf at the same time the first rank of blood bubbles was bursting. A crimson fog stained the air, but there was no figure in black within it. Not making a sound, Dee ran through a world of red, where one blood bubble after another exploded. Up ahead of him, he saw Eiling frozen in her tracks as though the blood bubbles were flying straight for her. Hold your breath and hit the ground, Dee shouted, coughing a split second later. He'd been hit by the bloody mist from a bubble he'd shattered overhead. The bright blood seemed to pry his lips apart as it spewed from his mouth. Though his own lifeblood streamed out behind him, Dee didn't falter in his pace. Grabbing the vulnerable Eiling around the waist, he bolted for the fence. When the blood bubbles zipped toward the leaping figure, a flash of silver shot out for them. As if pushed away by the wind in his sword's wake, the blood bubbles receded. Dee slipped right through their midst. Sprinting a good 40 feet, he turned to look behind him. There didn't seem to be any way to escape the swarm of bubbles fiendishly closing in on them. Just how much of their poisonous fog could he endure? It's okay now, Dee said, not seeming pained at all as he let Eiling know it was safe to breathe again. How about it? He asked someone else.
Do whatever you like. You're a regular slave driver.
On hearing that irritable reply, Eiling started looking all around them with her flushed face. Gently setting the woman on the ground, there was no telling what Dee was thinking as he dashed right for the blood bubbles that were closing in on them. Suddenly, the vermilion globes rose as one. Spacing themselves uniformly, the blood bubbles formed a circular canopy. Anything beneath that ceiling was sure to be attacked and trapped by their deadly mist. But Dee went right under the center of it. They were 40 feet above him, a distance that, for all Dee's leaping ability and skill with a sword, would be too much of a gap. Dee's left hand rose. If the blood bubbles had been equipped with eyes, they might have seen the human face that formed there. Eyes reminiscent of the tiniest bamboo leaves sparkled wickedly, and thin lips pursed. With a loud whoosh, the air began to rush in one direction, toward the tiny lips. Caught in the extreme suction, every last blood bubble sank in a straight line toward the palm of Dee's hand. Dee's blade danced about and, with no way of escaping, the globes of blood burst wide open. And before the blood raining down from them could cover his body, Dee leapt back. And bubbles trying to rise to the sky once more were pulled along with the madly howling wind, and then popped, without ever being able to form a bloody and inescapable curtain around Dee. Leaping back from where he dispatched the last of them, Dee drove his blade into the ground and fell to one knee, coughing horribly. A crimson stain spread across the blue scarf covering his mouth. His coughing stopped in a matter of seconds, and Dee got up. Taking the scarf away, he turned to Eiling. Her deathly white face was struggling to form a smile. "You'll want to take a bath in the antidote later." And saying that, Dee took a few gold coins from an inner pocket on his coat and closed Eiling's fingers around them. Payment for the chickeners he'd dispatched. Eiling was about to shake her head, then thought better of it and accepted the money. Out on the frontier, even a single bucket could be a precious commodity. "What just happened?" she asked. "I've never heard of anything like that coming out of chickener blood." Her voice was tremulous, no doubt due to the fact that while hers was a hard life, up until now, it had also been a relatively uneventful one. "Isn't your husband around?" Dee finally asked her. "This morning, he headed off to town. He's got other work to do." "Do you want to come with me? I can't tell you if staying here would be safer, but I can take you to your husband. After all, those blood bubbles went after you, too." Eiling bobbed her head with its fright-stiffened features up and down. After shutting the gate so the meat beast wouldn't run off, the two of them got on Dee's cyborg horse and galloped away. "Never seen fighting like that before. What in the world are you?" Eiling asked. Her arms wrapped tightly around Dee's waist. "You said you dreamt about me, didn't you?" "Yes, I did." "And what did you think?" Eiling fell silent. Her hair, already tinged with gray, fluttered in the wind. "Do I have to tell you?" she finally asked. "Not if you don't want to." "It made me hate you so much that I could kill you." One person said he was a dangerous man. Another said she despised him. Who could say that everyone in the village didn't fall into one of those two camps? Even in their dreams, Dee was something unsettling, something they found detestable. "I don't know why that was," Eiling continued. "I just found you truly hateful. Like you were going to destroy this life and everything we've worked so hard to build. But then, when I woke from the dream..." Her words trailed off there. It was some time before she resumed speaking. "I know I said I was happy before, but I envy Sybil. Never aging, never dreaming her dreams. Though not necessarily pleasant dreams. That's what everyone says." But any dream that you never had to wake up from would have to be better than reality. Even a nightmare. If she woke up, I wonder what she'd think of him.
How did the first real emotion in the woman's wary tone sound to Dee? As he sat there on his horse, his face remained as cold and emotionless as ever. They came to a road that ran back to the main street. As Dee was about to turn his mount toward the village, Ai Ling said,
"Go left, to the hospital. At this hour, my husband should still be there."
The horse galloped to the outskirts of the village, and in no time they were out in front of the white hospital building. Just as Dee was about to take off, Ai Ling politely requested that he explain to her husband what had happened. Though this might be the frontier, the battle that Dee waged at their ranch was like some conflict from the very depths of hell. No matter what she said, her husband probably wouldn't believe it. For once, indifference on the young man's part might cause a lot of trouble. After some consideration, Dee got off his horse.
"This way,"
Ai Ling said, walking ahead of the hunter. After going down a familiar corridor to stand before a door he'd seen before, Dee realized what was going on. Ai Ling knocked on the door, and when it opened from the inside, a man's face peeked out. The hunter didn't even need to see him. The solemn face toughened by countless blizzards was that of Sheriff Krupps. Second part, end.